You absolutely work hard. 7th book, incredible. That is quite the accomplishment. What led you to Spirited? Again, we discussed a little bit this pre-recording, but the idea of spirituality, it's a tough one to break in and really reach the masses in a sense and get them to be on board. Some are like, oh, that sounds religious. Others like, oh, that's woo-woo to me. But what made you say, hey, I want to do this on kind of wellness, spirituality, and create this book around Spirited?
Great question, Casper. It was also a hard right turn away from cookbooks and the playfulness of Top Chef or Iron Chef, Selena and Chef, all the things that I've been known for. I did want people to know that there's a flip side to every person. And for every person who is in the light or a connoisseur of the light, they absolutely have darkness. Whether they admit that to you or not is another story. And I felt like it was time for me to be a little bit more honest with my audience about my own addictions, my own hardships, my own family, and how I wasn't doing well. And how could I teach people wellness if I was actually sick myself? And I wanted to be much more honest with people. So I figured if I'm going to go out with an Audible original, I have to tell the story and I have to be very real. And so it was the only way I knew that I could share the Polish father raising me Catholic hardcore and the Japanese mother raising me Buddhist hardcore, and sort of being caught between these two worlds of Buddhism from the Buddhism from the Japanese side, and then being Catholic and Christian on my father's Polish side. I also thought it was strange that we did not discuss the beautiful relationships between people that chose to marry outside of their race. Mm-hmm. And for everybody to know that they chose love above all things. They didn't choose this person because they were Black, white, Latino, Muslim, etc. They chose them because they simply love this person. And so my mother is still a Buddhist. My dad is still a Christian, and they are best friends, and they go to Costco every week, and they're like in heaven together buying whatever Costco brand of insurance, air conditioning. I'm saying, oh yeah, we got the air conditioning at the Costco. It's on sale. Great price. And my dad will be like, oh yeah, Costco, amazing. We got to look into the stocks again. So they just have common bonds. And I thought we needed to hear that right now. So there's still food and nutrition and beauty and all the things I'm known for. But there was just this one thing that was missing. They say the first half of life is about the body, and the second half of your life is much about the spirit.
Right. And it seems like a lot of us are stuck on the body. They don't make that transition into the spirit. And I feel like, or maybe they're making the transition now from body to digital, right? Because it's kind of like
body to AI.
Yeah, right. We've gone there. And listen, I really appreciated that you were quite authentic in this, in a sense of being like, hey, like social media is a big deal in a sense, but it also is corrupting us. Can we acknowledge that? And also saying, as somebody that's been in this space for so long, I authentically will acknowledge I've gone through shit. I've had health issue and mental things here and there that we all have. I know myself being in this space also, and just like running a clinic. It's like, I feel like I can't tell people if I ever get sick. It's like, if I sneeze, they're like, wait, you didn't do a treatment for that? What, are you sick? Or something? Like, what's wrong with you? You're a fraud. And it's like, no, you're allowed to have these days. Right. And I feel there's a facade around it, around the idea that's pulling us away from spirituality into the digital world, into a fake existence. How did you navigate that, being in the public eye, being this, this golden child in a sense, and still able to tap into a spiritual world when so much of what goes on pushes us in the digital and away from that?
Well, what's so crazy is you have the same syndrome, unfortunately or fortunately, that I do, which is like you're almost born into a family where they expect so much of you. So there's like a golden standard in your family. I know with the Polish dad and the Japanese mom that we've had to my sister and I always thought we could never be a failure at anything that we did. And that would mean never, ever, ever fucking showing who I really was. I know my vernacular sounds like a TV host, and that's because I was a TV host. And I know that when I went on Home Shopping Network, I was a host there at 25, which nobody knows about because I'm ancient and I've done every fucking job in the world in front of the camera. But people said, oh, we need to take your vernacular out because you say like and dude and oh my God, because I'm from San Diego and that's what we say. It's part of the culture. So I've been told everything that I should and shouldn't do, what to wear, how to look, how to dress, what to present, what to say, what not to say. And I was so confused by the time social media came out where I was like, you mean I'm supposed to fucking tell people now when I'm having a bad day? Like, is that cool? Is it okay? So it was very distorted from the beginning because, as my mom says, oh yeah, around 2020, afterwards, everything is so crazy with technology. I can't keep up. And I feel her, she's a Japanese language and cultural teacher. She taught me everything that I know, from going to Japan at 5 years old to writing my 7th book with her and her blessing. And that is something I don't think authors do very often is write with their mom as like a Japanese and cultural editor on the side who teaches them this is okay to say and this isn't. I even gave her a copy of this book in advance. My agents at UTA would print out copies for me in print, even though it went on Audible. It was still really important to look at the values, the morals, the structure, the Buddhist principles, the Four Noble Truths, the Eightfold Path. Like everything had to be as accurate as possible. So she barely looked over it this time because I think by number 7, she trusts that I'm not going to put anything horrid or outrageous or awful in the book. And then I think that there also was a built trust with my own audience already by that point that it was like, she's the real deal. Candice has fucking done everything possible that she could possibly do, including culinary school, line cook, editor at every food magazine or wellness or health magazine that I could think of in New York, judging on Iron Chef to, the dumbest food shows in the world, like Extreme Chef or this one's not dumb, but Be Bobby Flay. There's a million things that people can say they think they know you for, but at the end of the day, like, you don't know me. No. I don't know you. We're behind closed doors. Like we all have voices. We have bad days. We have depression. We have anxiety. So to answer your question, like this was the first time I actually revealed the horrible addictions and thoughts and dating process and, my Rolodex of men. I loved going out with my friends and partying. And then I always thought that prescription sleeping pills were just for traveling and no big deal. And then I got hooked on them. And these are things I wanted to talk about because I thought it was too fake to tell people that I was the golden girl of wellness all the time. And then, like we had spoken about earlier, I was just waiting for the haters to come out because I was like, bring it on, because there's nothing you can do like to faze me at this point. And sure enough, as soon as the first bad review came in, Casper, I was like, oh, fuck. And I read it and I cringed and I was like, oh, I know my voice sounds corporate. You want to sorry, I can shoot a commercial tomorrow and get paid for it. It's part of my job. Yeah. But I can't change who I am. And nor do I want to. Like I often say, you're doing something right when you can be honest and say, my life is pretty fucked up, but I wouldn't trade it with anyone. I honestly wouldn't, even as an entrepreneur on my worst days. Just last week, I had another, I call it like a little depression episode when you have a big project come out and you are just done and you sort of lie in bed all day and you're a bit down on yourself because you've completed something astronomically huge that took 5 years. And so I'm still human. I still have depression and anxiety. And, for the haters that wrote, I sound corporate and I'm fake. You don't fucking know me. I didn't even
Yeah.
put half of the shit I've gone through in the book because I was too afraid. So unfortunately, we live in an era where you and I and everyone else listening to this pod will live in fear of what other people think. And we will never actually be able to show you who we truly are, what we're truly going through, and what our lives are actually shaped like every day. And because of that, I ask people to give me grace and to give others grace and to never judge somebody else's mental health issues as surfacey, because I'm sorry, but you will never know the experience of another human being. And if you say one nasty thing to somebody, which is unkind and honestly not even validated half the time, not true at all, that person might go out and be extreme and kill themselves. And it is something that people need to be aware of these days, is like, please don't say anything unkind to others if you can help it, because you might trigger them to take their own life at this point. And I wrote the book mostly, Casper, for every young girl out there, because they might have needed to hear my story to save their life. Because I've been there, I know what it's like. I feel like I've lived 20 or 30 lives already. And everybody has a darkness, and we must be made aware of this. And no one's suffering is more important than another person's.
Yeah.
It is not more, nor is it less. It should not even be measured.
Right. I always make that, point that you can't measure as someone suffering against the next person's or anything. It's impossible. It's like, tell me how your pain is. I just spoke with a doctor before this about pain, and it's, it's a scale, but your 10 may be, someone else's 2 and the other way around. And we're not looking to compare it. It is what it is to you. And that's all that matters. So let's first acknowledge that and give people the space to, have their suffering in a sense and not add on to it. I think there's like a great point of this book is that the more authentic you get, the better you are at connecting to the universe, to your spirit, to other things. There's less of a bridge, I feel like, between you and who your fulfillment or your highest destiny becomes. And unfortunately, we do live in a society where so much is fake. And so much is this, we're scared to be vulnerable. We're scared to put ourselves out there, to get the haters, to do all that. And then we sit there on digital and we just, obsess over others' lives and get caught up in the algorithms of life. But especially in the health field, I feel like it's become incredibly saturated. You know this. We've both been in it for a while, 20 plus years or so. You've done so much in so many different areas of the field, from writing to the cooking to the media, all of it. It's changed, hasn't it, over the last 20 years?
I wish I could savor the best.
I wish so too.